Snow fell softly on the city streets as Alexander Frost hurried from his car to the restaurant where he had a business dinner scheduled. At 34, as CEO of Frost Enterprises, his days were a blur of meetings, deals, and decisions worth millions. He was already running late, distracted by the merger proposal he'd been reviewing. He didn't notice his wallet slip from his coat pocket as he reached for the restaurant door. "Excuse me, mister." Alexander turned to see a small girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, running toward him. She wore a thin tan coat over a pink dress, clearly inadequate for the December cold. Her blonde curls were tangled, her small face marked with the dirt of street life. In her tiny hands, she held his brown leather wallet. "You dropped this," she said, holding it out to him with both hands, as if it were something precious. Alexander took the wallet, stunned. He opened it quickly and confirmed everything was there. Credit cards, cash, his ID, nothing missing. This child, who clearly had nothing, had returned a wallet containing over $400 in cash. "Thank you," he said, his voice catching slightly. "That was very honest of you." The girl smiled, revealing a gap where her front tooth should be. "My mama says finding isn't keeping if it belongs to someone else. You looked sad when you were patting your pockets. I thought maybe you lost something important." Alexander looked at her more carefully. Her clothes were worn but clean. Her face was dirty, but her hair had been carefully braided, though it was coming undone. Someone was trying to take care of this child, despite obvious poverty. "What's your name?" Alexander asked, crouching to her level. "Ellie. I'm almost 5. She held up 4 fingers. "Mama says my birthday is in 2 weeks. Where is your mama, Ellie?" The little girl pointed down the street. "She's sitting by the bakery. We stay there sometimes because it's warm from the ovens." Alexander felt his chest tighten. "Are you homeless?" Ellie nodded. "Mama says we're on an adventure until we find a new home. We had an apartment, but Mama lost her job and we had to leave. She's looking for new work, but nobody wants to hire us." The simple explanation, delivered with a child's innocent acceptance, hit Alexander harder than any business setback ever had. Here was a little girl, living on the streets, who'd just returned a fortune to a stranger without hesitation. "Ellie, can you take me to your mama?" "Okay, but you have to walk slow. My legs are shorter than yours." Alexander cancelled his dinner meeting with a quick text, ignoring his business partner's irritated response. Some things were more important than mergers. Telly led him down the snowy street, chattering about the Christmas lights in store windows, about how she liked the snow even though it was cold, about how her mama read her stories every night even though they didn't have books anymore. Near the bakery, a young woman sat on a piece of cardboard, a threadbare blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She couldn't have been more than late 20s, with the same blonde hair as Ellie, though dirty and pulled back. Her face showed exhaustion and worry that transformed to panic when she saw her daughter with a well-dressed stranger. "Ellie, what did I tell you about talking to people?" She pulled the girl close protectively. "I'm sorry, sir. She's friendly. She didn't mean any harm. She didn't cause harm. She prevented mine." Alexander held up his wallet. "Your daughter returned this to me. I'd dropped it without realizing. Everything is still inside." The woman's expression shifted to cautious pride. "Ellie knows better than to keep what isn't hers. I'm glad she could help." "What's your name?" Alexander asked. Sarah Mitchell." She kept her arm around Ellie. "Thank you for walking her back. I worry when she wanders off. I'm Alexander, and I have to say, your daughter showed more integrity than most adults I know. You're clearly raising her well despite difficult circumstances." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm trying. It's not what I want for her, living like this. But I lost my job 3 months ago when the restaurant I worked at closed. Then we lost our apartment. I'm trying to find work, but nobody wants to hire someone with no permanent address and a child in tow. Ellie tugged on Alexander's sleeve. Mister, do you have a job for my mama? She's really good at cooking and cleaning and making people smile. The direct question from this small child cut through all of Alexander's usual business calculations. Here was a woman who'd taught her daughter honesty in the midst of desperation. Here was a child who'd returned hundreds of dollars while living on the street. If this wasn't character worth investing in, what was? What kind of work do you do, Sarah? Alexander asked. I was a server and assistant manager at a family restaurant. Before that, I worked in hotel housekeeping. I'm good with people, organized, hard-working. But right now, I'd take anything. I just need a chance. Alexander made a decision that would have shocked his board of directors. I own Frost Enterprises. We have several businesses under that umbrella, including a hospitality division that manages corporate housing and event spaces. We're always looking for good people. Would you be interested in interviewing? Sarah stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. You're offering me a job interview? Just like that? Just like that? Your daughter demonstrated the kind of character I value. You clearly instilled that in her, despite incredibly difficult circumstances. That tells me you're someone worth knowing. I don't have an address for your HR to contact me. I don't have interview clothes or childcare. We'll figure it out. First, let's get you and Ellie somewhere warm for the night. There's a family shelter 2 blocks from here. Good place, safe, clean. I volunteer there sometimes. I'll call ahead, make sure they have space for you. Sarah's pride warred with her daughter's need. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. Consider it an investment in a future employee. You can't interview if you're frozen, and Ellie needs to be somewhere safe. Ellie looked up at her mother with hopeful eyes. Mama, can we? I'm really cold. That decided it. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Alexander called the shelter, arranged accommodation, then paid for a taxi to take them there. He gave Sarah his business card and promised someone from HR would contact her at the shelter tomorrow. As the taxi pulled away, Ellie waved at him through the window, her small face split by a huge smile. The next day, Alexander personally ensured Sarah got an interview for an assistant coordinator position in their hospitality division. She was hired on the spot, her warmth and organizational skills immediately apparent. The position came with housing assistance, childcare, support, and benefits. Within a month, Sarah and Ellie had moved into a small but comfortable apartment. Ellie started kindergarten. Sarah excelled at her job, her natural people skills and work ethic quickly earning her respect. 6 months later, Alexander found himself stopping by Sarah's desk more often than necessary, making excuses to check on projects she was handling, asking about Ellie's progress in school. 1 year after Ellie had returned his wallet, Alexander invited Sarah and Ellie to dinner. Not a business dinner, but something personal. They went to a family restaurant, where Ellie chatted endlessly about her upcoming 6th birthday, and Sarah laughed more freely than Alexander had ever seen. Can I tell you something? Sarah said as they walked back to her apartment afterward, Ellie skipping ahead. That night, when Ellie brought you to me, I'd been praying for a miracle. I was terrified of what would happen to us, where we'd go when winter really hit. Then this stranger appeared, who saw past our circumstances to who we were. You changed our lives. Ellie changed mine, Alexander said. "I'd been so focused on business, on success, on building an empire. I'd forgotten why any of it mattered." She reminded me that character, integrity, and kindness are worth more than any quarterly earnings report. 3 years later, Alexander and Sarah were married in a small ceremony. Ellie was flower girl, proudly declaring to everyone that she'd found her mum a husband by being honest. The homeless girl who'd returned a wallet had given back more than money. She'd given a successful but lonely man a reminder of what truly mattered. And in doing so, she'd found a family and a future that no amount of money could have bought. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe. Comment about small acts of honesty that changed everything.